Hello, this is Rick again, Bike Fitness Coaching. We are here 3 months later with part 2 of our e-bike safety and maintenance talk with Richard Duquette, attorney out of San Diego. With that, I'll turn it over to Richard.
Hi, Rick. Thanks for having me. It's great to be here and promote e-bike safety for especially the younger generation, as well as seniors and recreational bicyclists themselves. This is a second in a series of lectures that we want to distribute to the public to promote bike handling, safety, rules of the road, and previously we talked about insurance coverage. Let me just briefly recap that. Previously, we talked about rules of the road and e-bikes. As everybody knows, it needs to be really clear. An e-bike, by definition, is not a motor vehicle. So the vehicle code section that applies, that you should be very aware of, so there's no confusion, is vehicle code 24016B, like in boy. And it says, an electric bicycle is not a motor vehicle, and that would be an electric bicycle that has self-assist, pedaling, not just a propelled electric bicycle. In other words, if it's self-propelled without human power, that might take it out of the definition. And Rick Schultz was kind enough to ask me to talk about that before we started. So it's important for purposes of insurance coverage that an e-bike be classified as not a motor vehicle for various reasons, so that there's insurance coverage. So if you're hit by another vehicle and you're on an e-bike and the bad guy doesn't have enough insurance, then what will happen is you can obtain recovery using your own policy or underinsured motorist policy. And the case that applies would be DAUN, D-A-U-N versus USAA 2005, 125, Cal Up 4th, 599. So, like I was saying, we were going to recap it. There's a variety of different types of e-bikes that are available out there on the market. There's class 1, 2, and 3 e-bikes. And if you look at the link to our first presentation, it describes them. It also talks about a class 3 and mopeds. So the California Bicycle Coalition has a great chart if you go online, People for Bikes, and it discusses the requirements in terms of where you can ride, where you can't ride, and if, for example, you don't, there are certain, you don't need a driver's license, and right, and a license plate, but you do need a helmet if you're under 17. But anyways, again, this is People for Bikes, California Bike Coalition. This was recapped in our last presentation, and it talks about the classes of bikes, what's required of the user, and where you can have access. So that's the key. But remember, again, an e-bike that's self-propelled or with pedal assist under vehicle code 24016B, like in boy, it's not considered a motor vehicle. Also, vehicle code section 415 says a motor vehicle is a vehicle that is self-propelled versus one that's propelled by human power. So if you're using your body and you're pedaling, it's an e-bike under most circumstances, and that gives you insurance coverage. You should also know that insurance coverage is available for e-bikes. I have a list. If you need it, you can always call Rick Schultz. But there are several companies that actually provide insurance for e-bikes. So if you're riding an e-bike and you're hit and the bad guy doesn't have enough insurance, if you have underinsured motorist coverage, say 250, the bad guy has no insurance, you could perhaps recover $250,000 under certain circumstances. One of the companies that does provide it is Safeco, S-A-F-E-C-O. There's a trend now to provide insurance for not only motorcycles but e-bikes as well. And that's important because, as I understand it, in Southern California, about 85% of the population are either underinsured or uninsured. So if you do get hit and you're riding your e-bike or one of your kids gets hit, you want to make sure there's enough insurance coverage that protects for disability and any kind of disfigurement beyond what you might have by way of coverage with your health insurance policy. In other words, it gives you extra coverage. Yes, there's a premium, but it's worth it. It's also worth it if I've had several cases where kids actually were negligent and they've actually hit other cars. And so under those circumstances, the parents and the kid or the minor having insurance, it would protect them and the family. So those are some of the points to recap the e-bike insurance and the definition, where they can ride, and what's necessary in order to ride and what's not necessary. Today, though, we're talking about bike handling and safety. So these are the 5 points that we're going to talk about. So the first is proper equipment, training, handling, rules of the road, defensive safety, emergency tactics, maintenance, and checking and replacing equipment. So the first thing is, if you buy an e-bike from a shop, a bike shop, you should first of all make sure that it's a proper e-bike for your ability, and you're properly fit. You need to talk to someone like Rick Schultz and have Rick bike fit you so that the seat is adjusted, the handlebars are adjusted with the right height, make sure the brakes are working properly, and that that other recommendations for purposes of safety are provided when you buy, like buying accessories. I would recommend buying a lot of accessories. So that would be the proper equipment. Some of the equipment, obviously, is a helmet. But this is the thing about a helmet. I see a lot of kids riding, and the helmet, they think, they looking cool is part of, the environment sometimes. And their helmets their strap is loose. It has to be properly fitted, and it needs to be properly fitted on their head, and the strap needs to have the proper tension in order for it to work. Now, under the uniform code of safety, with the United States manufacturers, bike helmets have a limited, use. In other words, up to a certain amount of speed, but the insurance company will attack your helmet and the use of a helmet, especially if you're a minor and you're not strapping it or wearing it, because you're misusing the equipment. You want to have it on. You don't want them to try to diminish or minimize your claim or you don't want your children or child to be hurt, or you don't want to be hurt if you're not wearing your helmet and you don't, number one, have one, like a DOT-approved helmet, or it's not fitted properly. So you want it fitted properly, you want there to be tension, and you want a quality helmet. Some of the helmets now actually have suspension nets inside the helmet to help absorb the impact. There's a debate about the usefulness of those safety nets inside the helmet, but there are engineering studies, I believe, that probably support the benefit of that, not just the cushioning and the foam helmet itself. So helmets are big, and the use of the helmet is important. Eyeglasses. If you're riding an e-bike, class 1 e-bikes go up to 20 miles an hour. Oftentimes there's debris out there, the wind, perhaps even sunglasses if it's a sunny day. You want gloves. If you go down, you don't want to damage your hands. The proper fitting shoes, long slacks so that you don't end up with road rash. And one of the other pieces of equipment that I like a lot is this is a Bontrager or Trek lumen light, and this is very important. It's about $60, but these help warn other motorists when you're out on the road.
And it's a rear light?
And this is a rear light. It's a red light. You can also get them for the front, but your pedals should also have reflectors to be code compliant with the law, and even on the wheels themselves.
So how far can that be seen at night?
This light here, this Bontrager light, can be seen according to the manufacturer's specs here, 2 kilometers or 1.25 miles away. And I've actually had cases where, Rick, where the visibility of the bicyclist is relevant, and because they were hit from behind. And I've actually gone out and done testing. In fact, in one case, we rented an airstrip and spent the money with experts to determine the visibility of the bicyclist from behind with the lighting and the reflectors. We rented an airplane airstrip, but that was a $20 million case, and we won. But it's amazing how far away these lights can be seen. This Bontrager light is a rear-mounted red light, and it can be seen 1.25 miles away. So some of the things that it does is it blinks. You can have it on a steady light. It can be seen during the day. They run sometimes 13 hours at a time. It just depends on what mode you have it on, how long they last. But you want a strong lumen. So what is a lumen? People wonder about that. A lumen is the standard unit for measuring the brightness of light. It's equal to the amount of light hitting 1 square foot of surface 1 foot away. That's what a lumen is. That's how you determine. So the more the lumens, the brighter the light. And I would highly recommend getting a strong lumen. The stronger the lumen, the better. This is from the Cambridge Dictionary. So you want lights, you want insurance, and you want, for example, high underinsured motorist limits. Even though that's not really like riding equipment, I think it's part of the equipment. You want, so your auto policy for liability, but then under that you have an underinsured motorist provision, and it's only a couple hundred a year. You can get 300. Sometimes you can even get an umbrella with an underinsured or uninsured motorist provision. You want that. If you're riding an e-bike, a lot of these kids are riding their friends. You want foot pegs on the side so that their feet are not flopping over. There's better handling. There's straps you can hold on to for the passenger, so the passenger doesn't fall off and damage their head.
And they need a helmet too.
With the helmet, and the passenger needs a helmet too. So these are some of the items for purposes of proper equipment, and I would encourage spending the money, getting a good fit, getting a good bike. And
one thing I noticed, Richard, on this box, it says daytime. I think we recommend not only for nighttime, but use these for the daytime too. Anytime you're on the e-bike, turn the light on.
Good point, Rick. So I will say that almost 10 years ago, I handled a case on Camp Pendleton, California, and North County Transit District bus hit 3 bicyclists that were riding as far to the right as practical, and at that point in time, one of them unfortunately was killed, and the other 2 were seriously hurt. The good thing is not only did we were able to recover compensation, but without going into the details, which is confidential, we are allowed to say that we changed the bike bus training nationally for First Transit. And First Transit, you might have heard of Greyhound buses, but North County Transit and First Transit work together. Since that point in time, almost 10 years ago, everybody's now using rear lights, even during the day, like you pointed out. This is really important. You got to use these lights. It's worth the money. It's not worth taking a chance. Being in a bike lane doesn't guarantee your safety. People are distracted. They're on phones. You need these lights. You need every edge possible. And since that bad case on Camp Pendleton almost 10 years ago, everybody, it shocked the bicycling community, and it shocked our sense of security. And so now everybody is using these lights, and it works. And if you're in a pack and it looks like Christmas during the middle of the day, which is a good thing. Anything to protect the bicyclist. So buy the lights, buy the equipment when you go into the shop, on top of the bicycle itself. Okay, so the second thing we want to talk about is the training in schools. I will point out that you should have some training. Somebody should teach you, the bicyclist, how to properly ride a bike. So, for example, school safety and instruction under AB Assembly Bill 2028, which went into effect 7/20/2022, says that school safety instruction, the facility and the time, working in conjunction with law enforcement and police and schools, they can use the facility to train these kids, and they're doing it. And what's happening now is the schools are getting smart, and what they're saying is, you want to ride your bike to school, you need to take a class, and then we'll give you a permit. So it educates the kids who may perhaps not have had driver's education for driving a car in order to ride their e-bikes. So I think these training programs, I think these bike coalitions also are doing this. They're now reaching out to the schools. I think they should. I think they should charge a fee. And it's, because usually they have very, refined programs that teach handling, safety, and rules of the road. And so like the San Diego Bike Coalition, California Bike Coalition, there's quite a few. And I would encourage you to have your kids, or even just attend one yourself. I've attended one, and they're very useful. Sometimes there's in-class training, and then they train you out in the field. So it's both. Bike handling, that's the third area that I want to talk about. How do you handle a bike? So I've got some friends that are very good bicyclists. One actually set a land speed record, 183.9 miles an hour at Bonneville, being towed behind a special Bonneville vehicle, and then it was released, and there was some pedaling for a period of time to set the record. But if you look at the video, to be able to handle a bike and to stay within a draft, and to stay upright and to pedal, it's the same thing with an e-bike. You have to be able to properly handle the bike. So on an e-bike, as you know, there are different modes. So you're pedaling, and the bike then automatically, it picks up juice and momentum. And then depending on the hill or how fast you want to go, you can adjust the mode with your thumb. And that's part of the handling, is knowing when to put it in eco mode, economical, moderate, or turbo mode to get the right speed up to 20 miles an hour. So how much speed do you apply, and under what circumstances? How about going around turns? How about when you go around turns, you've got to watch for gravel in the road, sand, so that you don't slide out
when not to apply power.
And when not to apply power, you need to pay attention. It's very important to learn how to handle a bicycle. And I think riding with other bicyclists will help you. You should never overlap wheels. A lot of these inexperienced bicyclists, in terms of handling, they ride next to their friends. The problem with that is if one moves from one side to the other, they'll take out another bicyclist. That's called overlapping wheels. That's part of handling, and that should be taught and trained. Handling, when you move from right to left because you want to turn, a lot of these people don't realize that they should slow down. They should actually twist their body and look behind them and give the appropriate signals when they're handling their bike, and not just move over and assume that they're not going to get hit. A lot of people get hit just because they move from right to left without signaling, without slowing down, without turning around. Perhaps riding in a group, they should call out that it's clear, if it is clear. This is part of handling and communicating on a bike. Okay, so rules of the road, I think we all know those. You stay as far to the right as practical, try to ride in a bike lane. You can go out of a bike lane depending on the circumstances. If the bike lane is obstructed, etc. There's a law on that subject, which I'm not going to go into, but you want to stay out of the way of traffic if at all possible, and as far to the right as practical. But there are exceptions to that law. Defensive safety. Number 4, defensive safety. How do you brake? So somebody cuts you off, you get right hooked. You're coming up to an intersection and a car turns in front. Do you slam on your front brake or do you hit your back brake first? Well, what you want to do is you want to defensive safety. A good friend of mine is an expert witness I've used in court. He's written books on emergency braking. You want to hit the back brake first and or feather the front. If you hit the front brake first, what will happen is your front end will slide out and it'll twist due to the momentum. You have more control if you apply your back brake first and then your front brake. So
yeah, I think it's good to note that on e-bikes, the brakes are more powerful than on their counterpart regular bike. Without, like if you have an e-bike mountain bike that's built off of another mountain bike, just a regular pedal bike, the brakes are much more powerful on the e-bike. So
right.
It's
the brakes are more powerful, like Rick says. Many of these bikes, e-bikes, have disc brakes, and a disc brake actually has a caliper and it compresses the disc, so they grab very quickly and they can stop. So for purposes of defensive safety, you might want to have like some kind of a bell or ringer, like this ring, to notify cars, other bicyclists, pedestrians. Sometimes when I'm mountain biking, I actually have a little bell, and just the vibration on the road when I'm off-road mountain biking will ding. And I just did a race, the Cactus Cup last weekend in North Scottsdale, Cave Creek, and there were hikers on the road on this trail. And there weren't any horses, but horses were allowed. But having a little bell, or a bell that just is activated by the vibration and dings, gives the other hikers notice for safety. So, and there are e-bikers that ride off-road, and I think the hikers like it. They like having notice. They move out of the way. They're usually very courteous. I think it works both ways. And so it's not just safety and giving people notice, it's just getting along with people in the courteous behavior. And that just takes a simple bell or some kind of a dinger like this, and goes a long way. I mean, and if you're flying downhill and you give notice ahead of time, and you're going 15, 20 miles an hour down a trail or a road, and you give notice, it'll protect you. Because if you hit them in the road because they don't see you coming, I mean, you could seriously get hurt. Another thing about defensive tactics, I have what they call aftershocks here. And this is a Bluetooth operated device. It hooks up to my phone. and I have a playlist, and it's not an earplug. It goes around. It's like a conduction, a vibration, and you can still, if you turn it down low, you can still hear it play music, and
Your ears aren't covered.
and your ears are not covered, exactly. And so you can have fun if you're going a long ride. You can stay within the bounds of the law, and it's called an aftershock. And you can pick your own music so you can make your trip more enjoyable. This is a safety tool, defensive tool, so you can hear vehicles coming up on you from behind. So I do a lot of long rides in training, and I use these aftershocks, and I still hear cars well in advance, and I just adjust it depending on the location.
Good idea.
So the other thing I'd like to point out in the last issue for now is maintenance, checking and replacing equipment. Maintenance, one of the things you might want to consider is, depending on your tires, if you have a tubeless tire, you can put a sealant in there. There's like Stan's sealer, or Bontrager has a sealer, and you take a little injector and you inject the sealant into the tires, and it, for purposes of maintenance, it helps eliminate flat tires. You want to make sure you replace your chains so you don't break a chain. You want to make sure your tires have tread, obviously. Your battery's charged. These are some of the things that you might want to do, and you want to go into your bike shop or your bike fitter and have them replace this equipment. So
Yeah, I think another point, brakes are very important to maintain. The brakes themselves, the rotors, the discs, the pads. Another thing, I actually wrote a course I teach over at Saddleback for bike and e-bike safety and maintenance. And the research I've done is that there are a lot of e-bike fires. Why is there an e-bike fire? People's whole houses burn down because the e-bike catches on fire when it's being charged. What they're pointing the issue to is that people are replacing there's two things. Number one is that the charger and the battery do not have a BMS, battery management system. So the battery just keeps charging and charging and charging. It gets hotter and hotter and hotter, and finally either explodes or melts or causes a meltdown and causes a fire. The second thing is the cheaper batteries for people to save a few dollars. Instead of getting a manufacturer's replacement battery, they're going aftermarket and buying a cheaper battery, and those lack a lot of the QA, quality assurance. They lack a lot of the safety features that the manufacturers put. There is a reason why the manufacturers charge more money for their batteries. A cheaper battery is more likely to catch fire when you're charging than a manufacturer's battery. That's another point.
That's a really good point. I read a lot about that on social media, e-bike fires. I would, with our e-bikes that we have, they're visible whenever we're charging them. I don't go to bed and leave them plugged in and charge them. Mm-hmm. So a couple points in conclusion here. I believe e-bikes are the future. I support them. I support the shops and the bike fitters and the shops and the companies that sell them. Remember, under the Vehicle Code section 21200, bicyclists have all the rights as a motorist, as a car. And again, an e-bike is not a motor vehicle for purposes of insurance coverage. Don't let the insurance companies talk you out of coverage because they claim that an e-bike is a motor vehicle and it's excluded under, let's say, a homeowner's policy. It's not. It just depends. Look at your policy. Look at the e-bike. There are miscellaneous rules on where an e-bike can ride. Again, Vehicle Code 21207.5 puts some limits on where an e-bike can ride near a roadway. Vehicle Code section 21212 and 21213 talk about helmets and that they be properly fitted and be required by a passenger, if, for example, if they're under, I believe it's 17 or 18 years old. Furthermore, under Vehicle Code section 21213, a child under 16 shall not operate or ride as a passenger a Class 3 e-bike. That's the more powerful e-bike that goes over 20 miles an hour. Vehicle Code Section 21760 says that there's a 3-foot rule. And by the way, I'm speaking to motorists as well. Move out of the way, change lanes if you can. You don't have to buzz bicyclists. Be courteous and educate your friends. Move over to another lane if you can, just so that it's you don't buzz people and scare them, especially kids. 21456.3, bike can cross across on a walk signal, but must yield the right of way to pedestrians. In other vehicles, that's operative 1/1/2024. So that's coming up here beginning of the year. And so I support bike shops. I support e-bikes, and I like e-bikes, and they are the future. I hope these tips that Rick Schultz and I have helped you and your family, and it protects you and your kids, and it promotes, safe riding and fun out there. So thanks again for your time, Rick.
Yeah.
So
well, thank you, Richard.
Have a very good day today, and I appreciate everything.
We'll work on part 3.
Okay, thank you very much,
Okay.
sir.
Thank you.